Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning Board meeting for November 13th, 2018. If we can get an attendance roll call, Noreen, please.
Anthony Vaccaro.
Here.
Lisa McQuaid is absent. Rich Triano.
Here.
Bonnie Franson is absent. James McKnight is absent. Jason Sarinsky.
Here.
Jeff Manson.
Here.
Jeff will be our acting chair this evening.
Okay, and before we get started, I just want to point out fire exits. We have the fire exit through the main door that you all entered through, also down the back hallway here, and one more in the room behind us. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We started without Mark.
He pledged. It's good. Okay, so we're going to start tonight with a returning project. We're going to talk about the Scudamounk subdivision and their latest submission. Good evening. Welcome.
I'm Lucy Conley from Lincoln Tully. I'm here for John.
Thank you, Lucy.
So we submitted a revised yield plan. So we've submitted a revised yield plan for the subdivision of 262 Scudamounk. Last time we were before you, Mark had some concerns about the road grades. So we changed the road, both the layout and the grades, to meet the town specs. And we're also showing 9 lots. This is the yield plan. Since we're continuing work on the cluster subdivision, which is 6 lots, but since it has essentially the same road layout and grades as we were showing on the yield plan, we were looking to see whether that was acceptable before we continue to submit the cluster layout plan.
Acceptable as far as the road layout?
Yes,
Okay.
and if the yield plan is acceptable in general. But the cluster, the final subdivision is fewer lots.
Well, we had started this with 11 lots when we first looked at it. Then it was brought to 6. We're now looking at 9 again. One of the concerns that we were discussing in the past was brought up by Orange County in their review. And so they were addressing sewer capacity and the fact that the proposed division has 6 lots, each with a 6-bedroom house, where normally they said typically homes in this area would be 3 to 4 bedrooms. So they expressed some concern over that we, what it says is, the typical size of a single-family home in this area is 3 to 4 bedrooms, and the yield plan would only allow for 11 lots at the maximum. So this represents an increase in sewer usage over the yield plan. They suggested the possibility of the town restricting accessory apartments or other things to account for that. But so one of my initial concerns when I saw the 9 homes after us looking at 6 for a while is sewer going to be a issue since we're talking about larger than standard homes?
You mean with 11 being?
With 9, with going back to 9, because when we were talking about 6 even, when the county reviewed it, it was 6.
Right, and it still is on the future, the
It's still going to be 6,
one that
but
will be is
according to our
6.
code,
This is
they
the
need to
yield plan.
produce the yield plan as well.
This
Okay.
is the plan that would justify how many lots they were capable of achieving.
What
They're
they're
still
actually
proposing
doing.
6
Yeah.
as their proposal.
Understood.
Right.
Thank you. All right, good. I'm much more clear on that. Mark, had you had an opportunity to review these items?
I did. Again, for a yield plan, we don't look at the same level of scrutiny as we would for a design plan for construction, but there were some issues with this plan to verify information. And I just want to point them out and then comment that since it's a yield plan, they may not be critical. It was tough to follow some of the grading because a lot of the existing contours on the print are washed out and you couldn't really see the elevation numbers or follow the contours 100% clearly, but the general concept of the road appears achievable. So again, as a yield plan, I'm not terrifically concerned in that regard. The contours also didn't tie in a couple locations, but I'm sure if it was designed as a final plan, that could be corrected easily as well. The driveways, one of the things we look at, is it really buildable? I was able to follow some of the contours and determine that with lot 1, we end up with around a 10% slope driveway. The lots on the bottom, 6 through 9, the slopes are not that bad. A caution more for the design plan than the yield plan. In the field, we talked about not having downgrade driveways that aim right into the house, because during heavy rains, the driveway stormwater and any stormwater from the road that may not stay within the curbed area and runs down the driveway, it ends up in the house. So I suggested that the layouts be more appropriate. Again, this is a yield plan, they're not proposing to build it this way, but we wouldn't want to see a design plan that had the same configuration. I'm not quite sure what one of the lines was near station 10+00. There's, I don't know if it's a contour or what the line was, but I'm pointing it out so that maybe on the final yield plan, if it's a drafting error, it gets removed. We have a sewer line shown. I don't believe that the easement's been obtained from the last my understanding was, but if they don't get the easement, it can't get built either on the preferred plan or the yield plan. So again, they're showing a concept. How they're collecting it within the roadway, they're not depicting. I suspect several of the lots will need ejector pumps, but again, that's not really something that would bar them from showing that they can obtain this yield of 9 lots. They didn't show it, but the large lot 1, all of that area for the cross-hatching, which is the existing easement, wasn't subtracted off lot 1, but given the fact that lot 1 was over 96,000 square foot, no matter what the subtraction is, it clearly wouldn't bring it less than 15. And one other feature of the design, which is interesting, to obtain the road slopes, they're proposing, or they're showing, a retaining wall along the back of lot 1 through lot 4, that dark line that's along the plan, with a height up to 18 feet. That's
tall.
really excessive. But again, it's a yield plan. I've seen developers who may step the wall to accomplish it, make it more aesthetically pleasing. It's an expense, doesn't mean it's not achievable. So unless there would be a reason to say that invalidates the yield plan, and I don't think it does, but I'm just pointing out that they're obtaining it by having that wall. All those things considered, as a yield plan, I think it demonstrates that there is a way to meet zoning and a physical way to develop all 9 lots. As to whether that's cost effective, probably not, but that's why they're going to probably look at 6 lots and maybe eliminate some of the construction that's expensive. So that said, I have really no objection to the yield plan, but with those caveats.
Mark, any aspects we should be concerned with from the legal end?
The
And Mike.
standard is
Thank you.
whether it's approvable, which is somewhere between technical compliance and, what you're happy with. But I think for these purposes, especially since they're really only proposing 6 in the cluster, that wiggle room makes it easy to say the yield's acceptable and move forward with providing the detail needed on the cluster.
Anyone on the board, questions, concerns?
Is there?
No, I just, go ahead.
I don't. I'm glad you said about showing 9 lots and doing 6, because that was confusing me too.
Thank you. Jason?
Just for more of a historical context on this, Mark, there was a house, I believe, in the northwest corner. Lot 1 was into 2 lots in the original yield plan that we had received. Why was that house taken out? Just
Well, because we're only proposing 6 in the real subdivision. We didn't need the 11. And with this new road layout, it did make it difficult to get 2 houses back in here.
all right, fair enough. It's just that's what we saw in the original yield plan.
Right.
We also saw a house in the middle of that
There
little
was a
island
house in
there.
the middle, and we didn't need to do that.
That was more of a ridiculous one, but all right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Anthony?
Is the road geometry something that is approvable? Is this going to be a private road or a public road?
It has to be a public road because it exceeds the 4 internal lots. There's only one that has, and it's probably not even full frontage on the public road, so they would only be allowed to have 4 lots. So, yeah, with this, even with 6 lot count, they need a public road.
With the geometry, the lollipop type, with the tight radiuses?
Yeah. We haven't done overlays. Again, we'll look at more when they get it down to 6 lots, and they might change the shape of the road slightly. We'll look to see whether or not the overlays for emergency vehicles and plow trucks will all work. Again, I usually don't apply that to a yield plan only because we know we're not getting a final design.
Okay. And then the other question I had was, how would the island in the middle be handled? Is that going to be public space?
Last I understood, it was going to be owned by one of the lots, the larger of the lots. Right now, it's shown as being part of Lot 1, and I would suspect that they very well may do the same approach. And it may have a deed restriction against development. I don't know that the town would care to maintain that in addition to the roadways. And relative to the configuration of the roads without a conventional cul-de-sac, the highway department actually prefers this type because they can plow right through and not have to back up.
Turn around.
A lot of times, even with a full-size cul-de-sac, the wing plows are tough. Here, they could probably pull the wing plow up and just,
Well, if you have two-way traffic there and then somebody's parked on the corner,
this may end up having parking restrictions too. That would be a town board V&T exercise, but it's a good point.
Not that it's so much germane to the yield plan, but when I was reviewing the package to get ready for tonight and looking back, at what's been submitted so far, one of the things that I just want to bring up for John was there were some issues brought up by our conservation committee, particularly things relating to groundwater concerns and even more so stormwater runoff. And I don't think we've really had much conversation about that. So just, I kind of want to throw that out as a reminder that those issues are going to need to be addressed as well.
Sure.
Okay, well, we have enough people here for a vote on whether we find this yield plan acceptable. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Jeff, before you move on.
Oh,
could you
please,
just
sorry.
Restate, is it a yield plan for 9 lots or 6?
But they only proposed to cluster 6 of them.
I'm very confused.
Yeah, you may, just so it's in the spirit of what's been proposed, why don't we condition your acceptance of the yield plan if that's your inclination, and building no more than 6 in the cluster? Since there were some reservations about its desirability, that would be the best way to do it, because you're only proposing 6 anyway. So in other words, if you accepted the yield, you're accepting it on the condition that they build no more than 6 in the cluster.
Does that make sense to everybody? Anyone have a question about that before we move forward?
No, I think 6 makes sense. That's what Orange County's been studying. That's what we've been studying as well.
I agree.
Yes.
Okay, may I have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve this plan as a 9-lot yield lot plan.
I'll
Did I
second
make that
it.
right?
And we'll do that with a condition that, although we're accepting this as our yield plan, the expectation is that there'll be 6 lots on the final plan. Okay, can we have a vote, please?
Not in the computer, so we'll do it verbally. Anthony?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Okay, the motion is passed. Thank you very much. Okay, we also now have a new project coming before us, something we're calling the Meadow Hill subdivision that's out on Lakes Road. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joe Fow. I represent the applicant on this project. The project that you have in front of you it's a sketch plan preparation. It's a proposed 8-lot subdivision on 13 acres of land. It sits on the north side of Lakes Road. It is in the RR-1 acre zoning district. The use is single-family detached dwellings. All of the lots will have frontage on Lakes Road, which is also Orange County Road number 5. And they will all be served by individual wells and septic systems. There's no proposal for an interior road network. As I said, we are here for a sketch plan this evening. There is a wetland, actually a couple of wetland areas that we preliminarily delineated, which go through the center of the site, which we are in complete avoidance. We are proposing no wetland disturbance on this property at all. So what we're here this evening is to review the sketch plan. We did do net area calculations on all the lots, except for a little bit, there's very minor slopes over 30%. You can see them, just little spots here and there. But the gross area, the net area really reduction came from wetlands on lots 1, 2, 3, and 4. And also, I just want to let you know that what we've done, because we are coming off of the county road and we kind of assume that the county's going to require this, we do have combined driveways for 4 of the lots. I'm sorry, 6 of the lots. 6 out of the 8. So there will be a total of 6 driveway cuts.
Okay. Got it. Thanks, that was a detail I didn't pick up looking at it online. Mark, comments?
Sure. Again, as Joe indicated, it's a concept sketch plan. And just showing us relative to zoning, how they indicate they believe they comply. The values shown on the bulk table appear correct for the zone. The subsequent plan should really show all the bulk criteria for all lots individually. We can get that at the preliminary level. The wetlands that are indicated, note 9 indicates that the wetlands are from a 2004 map by Atzel, Skataza, and Ziegler. We should really, if the board believes that the layout has some merit, there should be an updated wetland evaluation made. It's a little more current, and in addition to the Army Corps wetlands, we need to deal with the Town of Monroe Chapter 56 local wetlands. So they have to be identified, and they should be treated in accordance with Chapter 56 of the town code. So those issues need to be brought up to date and added to the plan. Something Joe pointed out was the driveways. You referenced them as combined driveways. They're actually not combined driveways, just a common curb cut.
Right.
So within the public the county highway, it's a common pavement, but it doesn't run afoul of the town's code that they're sharing a driveway. They're individual driveways, they just come out to the road next to each other with a wider curb cut. But that's one of the key points of this project, because they will need Orange County Department of Public Works approval, and that approval is very much subject to the location of the driveways, site distances, and safety. With this being a 55-mile-an-hour posted stretch, those driveways are going to be critical. So my suggestion is that as Joe is moving forward, as soon as he can possibly get in a plan that's updated, maybe with the wetlands, the next critical issue is site distances from each one of the curb cut locations so that we can make a referral to Orange County DPW as early as possible.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Would I be able to meet with them as well at the site prior to you making a referral?
It depends if you go by the letter they send the municipalities, which says all submittals have to be from the town. And I suspect they're not going to want to meet with you until they have a submittal.
Okay.
And the letters that we get say the submittals have to come from the town. So my suggestion is get it in, we'll refer it, and then you can always request a field meeting, and I'm sure they'll let you do so once they have a plan from the town. They did give us 2-foot contours on the plan. As with the earlier plan we looked at tonight, a little more help with better identification of the contour elevation values would help in reviewing it. And there's no proposed values yet, but I'm sure they'll be added, and just be clear with those. Preliminarily, the well to septic spacing looks fine. We'll look at that again closer as it moves along, but it looks good. We're reminding them that with these, I believe the county's going to end up doing I commented standard design review by the town, but I presume County Health Department's going to be out here on this one. So if they're going to do
Yes.
all the site reviews, we don't have to. And last, given the size of the project and the disturbance, you likely will be in that threshold with a SWIP. It's going to be of concern given the proximity to the wetlands. So that is something we'll look to have addressed as the project progresses. And as was pretty much acknowledged, we need to send this to Orange County DPW, as well Orange County Planning, given its proximity to the county road. And because of its proximity to the town of Chester, at the appropriate time, it'll need to be sent to the town of Chester as well. So it's not an overly complicated project, but there's a lot of balls in the air, given the wetlands, the county highway, and so on.
Can I ask just a couple quick questions? With regards to the wetlands, the Chapter 56 town wetlands, is that a different criteria for delineation?
I would read the entire section because it's quite extensive.
We are having it redelineated.
Just maybe have whoever's delineating it become completely familiar with Chapter 56, and then they can distinguish with what might be Army Corps wetlands and what might in fact be additionally wetlands that are triggered by the town's code.
And could you verify the legal posted limit on that road? Because there's two different speed limits in each direction.
Okay, I'll verify. Off the top of my head, I'd say 55, but I will verify that.
One's posted 40 and the other one's posted 45 or 50.
Well, I'm hopeful that when the county DPW gets it, they'll know what they want, and they'll look at their criteria for the site distance.
Any other questions before we move on?
Yeah, I just have
Yeah,
two more
sorry.
quick questions.
Please.
We are going to have the wetlands, North Country's going to come out and do the redelineation. If it's close, and we show that we have no wetland disturbances, just for timing wise. Number one, will the town require actually a jurisdictional determination from the Army Corps on that delineation? If we're not doing any, if it's clear that we're not disturbing?
Yeah, I think we may make it a condition of the approval that you
Okay.
deliver it.
Okay. All right, okay. And then the other one is, when I did the database for the environmental assessment form, it did show, it did point yes to archaeology. So I just want to get things rolling. If required, is the planning board going to require a phase 1 A and B archaeology study for this project?
If it's there, you have to do something.
Do some analysis.
With regards to the shared driveway, shared curb cut, I know that there's been problems with shared driveways and we tried to avoid them. Would there be similar issues with curb cuts?
No,
The county will say the opposite.
yeah, the county wants to have a single paved, wider access and 2 drives off it. What I was trying to say, and I might not have been clear, is that the way Joe has done it on the plan is the way it's preferred. It
So what if
meets-
there is a dispute about the driveway apron and the maintenance of that? I mean, has that come up? I mean,
Many times the apron is almost the shoulder, and a lot of times the county, as they're maintaining the shoulder, will maintain that small area.
and on this particular
If there's a
instance, there's no
culvert-
curb, so it's not a
Yeah,
curb cut, it's
Right,
a
well, curb cut, just
driveway
reference,
intersection.
access point. If there's a culvert, I know that the county will not maintain the culvert. That leads sometimes to difficulties if there's 2 owners to a driveway. But we've never treated these as shared improvements because they're within the county right-of-way. And the county ultimately will force whatever maintenance is needed. We just avoid having it shared out of the right-of-way, then it becomes our burden to enforce. If it's in the county right-of-way, they've got their way of dealing with it, and this is actually their preferred.
And don't they
layout.
normally want 2% back slope from the road?
They usually like that, but I have no idea what the slopes are here. I don't know if it's sloping
I'll
away.
tell you that they'll make us profile all 8 driveways.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't think we're there yet.
Probably into the house, so we'll have to provide that when we make our full submission to them.
Thank you.
We good?
I've got something
Oh,
of
sorry.
just, I mean, I know you're not fully there yet. It's about water and the water quality.
Yes.
Landfill's not too far away from there, if I recall correctly, there's been some speculation about water pollution flowing out into various aquifers that people would take their water from. Is this within that area?
Well, I know that we worked on the Henry Farm project, the project just to the, I guess, the east of the landfill, the old landfill. And I know extensive testing was done there and showed there was no contamination. As far as this project goes, we have to go to Orange County Health Department. For 8 lots, we're going to be required to drill one well on our property
All right.
and test it, and we'll also be required to do quality testing on adjoining wells in the area as well as part of the counter review. So during that review process, if any, if any contamination come up, it would show up. Then we don't anticipate any because of the extensive testing that was actually done a lot closer to the landfill on that
Okay.
larger project. But the county will address that when we actually
Get there.
subdivision.
Okay.
What else have you got?
That's it. I'm done.
Rich?
I'm good.
Anthony?
I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of my questions got answered. Just some notes from, I guess it was the EAF, as I was looking through that. It listed police coverage as Town of Monroe Police, but there is no Town of Monroe Police. So that should either be, probably in that area, New York State Police. And fire coverage as Monroe Fire Department, which should either be Monroe Fire District or Monbassia Fire Company, I think would be covering that area of Lakes Road. So just little technicalities. And so as a sketch plan, this is sort of conceptual at this point. We'd be looking at if this is acceptable, a more finalized plan, and at that point, we'd want to see a cluster plan as well because it's a subdivision, that's required.
Yeah, I don't think this has gotten to that point even yet. One of the requirements that is part of the new code, and the chairwoman has educated us all a little bit on it, is a resource plan, which goes beyond just wetlands, goes into the tree inventory and other features of the property. So that's something that needs to be identified, and then I believe, based on what those resources are, the board decides if there is a cluster alternative that would be beneficial.
Want to make sure that valuable things are preserved in the cluster, not just that the subdivision is easier and cheaper to build.
Okay. I mean, I don't think I can get the lots any smaller because of the zoning that
I don't know
is.
if it'll work, you're right.
It very well may be that this is the only approach.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering with the layout of the overall property myself. Mike, any issues we should be taking into consideration?
No, as Mark said, it eventually will need to go to the Orange County Planning Department, the town of Chester before the hearing, and the other agencies that have approval, but it's probably premature for that. We could do a notice of intent to be lead agency, but you may want to wait till we have a little bit more information.
Should I submit that resource plan at the next, or our next meeting as well?
That'd be a good step, yeah.
If you're looking for the December meeting, the submittal date is November 29th.
Okay.
The meeting would be December 13th.
Okay, great.
Any more information you wanted to provide to us tonight?
I think I got it all.
Okay, and I think we have a good idea of what you're proposing here. All right, thank you very much. We're going to move around in the agenda a little bit and go right to a conversation about the review of the accessory apartment for Gomez. As you all know, there have been some emails back and forth. There's been some conversation about issues in relating to whether this is a project that needs to be referred over to the Zoning Board of Appeals because they don't meet the current area that they would need for, they're not on a full traditional acre. The property is located on a builder's acre. Could you review the issues for us, Mike?
Yeah, and one of the thoughts was, if, this is an existing accessory apartment. If the existing accessory apartment had been legal before the change in the code, the question was, would the non-conforming use, non-compliant building, substandard lot, limited protections of the code apply here and enable this applicant to move forward with getting a new accessory apartment permit under the current law? And one of the issues was this a legal accessory apartment? And Ben has pointed out in his most recent email that it was not, that the work was done without a permit and in violation of the code provisions that existed at that time. Therefore, there is no protection under the non-conforming protection section, because for each of its subdivisions, the use would have had to be legal at the time it came into existence. Therefore, they cannot get an accessory apartment permit without a variance, lot area variance.
And that does seem to be the general consensus. If you didn't have a chance to read Bonnie's email, it's along those same lines as well. And one of the things that I wasn't clear about from Ben's email, but it sounded like to me that in addition to once they had built the addition and that was all legal, and once they then put in the subsequent accessory apartment, that as part of the reconstruction, a stairwell was added, a ceiling was changed to accommodate that, and that the stairwell was to lead to a second floor bedroom, which does not show on the plans that were submitted to us for what's the accessory apartment. I think we, as part of this, ultimately too, also need to get a clear understanding of, is that second floor bedroom truly been treated as part of this accessory apartment? Because if I remember correctly, the square footage that we had was 750, which would max out the accessory apartment. And if there's more space that's part of the accessory apartment, whether, even if they get the variance, it's outside of code.
Yeah. Well, and there were, I think Ben suggested there were other code violations as well, so maybe we should get those specified.
It almost seems like that would be the next step to see, is it even worth putting it over to the zoning board, you know?
Well, probably the first thing is to ask the applicant whether or not they wish to go to the zoning board. They can appeal from Ben's denial anytime they want. But in the meantime, we can ask Ben to give us a more specific listing of what else needs to be corrected, because one of the preconditions or elements of the showing has to be that it's code compliant. And obviously, from what Ben tells us, it isn't, so the application is not complete.
Right, and I'd like to get his opinion on just where the boundaries of this accessory apartment are.
Noreen, did I see one of the emails said he was willing to come to the December meeting to discuss it?
Yes.
That might be the easiest way to do it.
He is in training this week, but yeah, he did say that because it's a Thursday night, he could make that.
Okay.
So all we have to do is tell him, and he'll put it on his calendar, and he'll join us at that meeting to discuss it, and I'll have David join us that evening. I just didn't think it would be necessary for him to come this evening, since we were back and forth so late with emails as to what we were doing.
Okay.
But just so I can give him an answer that it is still possible, he will have to go before the ZBA.
I think Ptolemy definitely will have to, and of course, if he decides to withdraw the application, it all goes away, but.
Right, well,
if
they,
we-
I guess, from what I'm understanding, is Gomez is trying to sell this property. So they can't sell it unless they get the approval for this apartment that they made. So,
It just seems to me like they almost have to see this out to the bitter end out of the situation that was created. So,
now there is no, I have a ZBA meeting at the end of this month, and there is none in December, because it would have been Christmas Day.
Well, they can always appeal from Ben's denial. They don't need a referral from us.
Right.
So they can get started on that process, but the question is whether there are other issues that may require a second trip back. I don't know. Ben would have to tell us that.
All right, so I need to ask Ben what, all of his list of what the violations are?
If they're just code issues, fine, but remember, one of the elements you have to demonstrate is that your building complies in all ways with code, and it doesn't sound like it does.
And including, if they're including this bedroom on the second floor as part of the apartment, that would have to be included in the 750 square feet, correct?
Or they need a variance from the allowance of area, assuming a variance could be granted for that.
I mean, based on the plans that were submitted to us, it looked to me very much a studio type of apartment. You know, it wasn't a delineated bedroom, that kind of thing. If the way around that for the family was they designated a bedroom, then we have to really look and see, well, does that fit into what was really the apartment if they built access? Because I don't remember in the original plan seeing any kind of designation of a stairwell, much less anything else.
I don't have that with me, and I can't access emails here.
I do, but I mean, whether we look at it or not, it was a very rectangular shape, kind of a, not even a galley kitchen, just sort of really a, you know, very studio apartment kind of thing. Is the board generally in favor of our next step being follow up with Ben, find out about code violations, invite him back to our December meeting so we can get some more, you know, good hard data from him? Does that make sense?
What's the alternative?
The alternative is we cannot really move this forward much more, that we can leave it up to the Gomez's to pursue a hearing with the ZBA directly, and then come to us, and then we can address those issues secondarily.
Maybe I'm missing something. The building inspector already expressed that it would not have been conforming when they built it.
As to lot area, he makes that clear. For other issues, he simply says there were violations served. He doesn't say whether they've been cured, whether, they're still outstanding. I don't know quite what they are, or whether they've been fixed. It isn't clear to me, anyway.
One of the shortcomings, I think, in the process is that we rely on the accuracy sometimes of the information that's submitted, and we really don't know if it's complete. The advantage in having many times Ben available, even if it's not at a meeting, but available to provide input, is that he's got the building department files. Theoretically, if there were any modifications made, He would know exactly what interior changes were made, violations that were issued, so he's very helpful.
Well, I appreciate that, and what I'm hoping this is a clear black and white letter, if you will, of what's conforming, what's not conforming.
Yep.
And we're not imposing on him to make any decisions that, he shouldn't be making, or, having to exercise overextends his discretion.
Agreed.
We also need to find out when these renovations were made, because there's the 10-year look back issue as well. Unless it's an elderly or infirm person that's going to be in the apartment, you can't have made the renovations within the previous 10 years.
So
We really got to get all those issues from his building file.
I think, Anthony, what you're saying is you want really a factual presentation, help from the building department more than anything.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's what I use Ben a lot of times for. If I'm short information, he's very helpful. But I agree with you. If it's something that needs ZBA relief, it would be unfair to put Ben in the position of attempting to make a determination to give relief or speak other than factually on what the record is.
Exactly.
Look, as Mike expressed, the applicant, pursuant to whatever we decide tonight, can pursue a hearing with the ZBA to resolve the issue of a area variance. But it's only, I think, fair that we inform them that we have a myriad of other concerns, and it might be better to address all of those first before pursuing that avenue. And then they can decide how they want to handle it.
Well, if they run to the ZBA without some clarification and assistance from the building department, they may end up making more than one trip to the ZBA, which becomes, number one, very time-consuming, and number two, could become more expensive. So I would think it would be their advantage to get all the items they need relief on identified before they run to the ZBA.
I think so.
I agree with that.
Listen, it may be, in the conversation with the applicant, that needs to be, part of our recommendation. This is what we're intending to do, and this is what we're intending to pursue. We want to get clarification. We think it would be beneficial to you to get that same clarification before going to the ZBA. And this is when we're planning on sitting down with, at our very next meeting, we'll sit down with the building inspector, get all of our questions answered, and we'll be able to tell you exactly what issues you need to overcome that are beyond the planning board and need to be appealed.
That sounds fair.
Sensible?
Okay, so I will tell David that December 13th, he should come. We'll have the building inspector here, and that we're looking for factual information from the building inspector on all items that need relief on this project.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, we're next going to look at several of the recent minutes and do a vote on approving those.
Okay, just give me 1 second.
Sure,
please.
sure.
But they also have the right to start the ZBA if they wish to.
I believe.
Can't
that they
stop
could
them.
use
Yeah,
Ben's
we don't have the authority to
Right.
stop.
Ben's email would be a decision or determination that's appealable to the zoning board. of
Right, because he
Situations.
keeps saying, is the planning board going to tell me yes or no? And I said, it's not our call,
Well,
you
one
can
thing's for
still
sure, they
go.
do have to go to the ZBA. The question is, how many things do they have to go
Right.
to for, and when is the best opportunity to go? They clearly need a variance for lot area. That's established now.
But code violations aren't things that can be remedied by an appeal to the ZBA.
No,
Those
no.
are just items that just have to be dealt with.
But the
What
code
other, so
violations
what other
may-
kinds of things could they be facing that they would need to go to the ZBA based on what we know
Well,
so
I have-
far?
The way that accessory apartment law is written, they restrict the number of things that can go to the ZBA and not. But for instance, the ratio of the accessory apartment to the total floor area, both as a percentage and a maximum, is arguably something that could be appealed. And it may be that the nature of the violations and the corrective action necessary to put them back, if that hasn't been done already, may throw that ratio out of whack, and that might be something they could seek variance relief from. I'm not sure they can, but it
But it
might be. And the 10-year period, the same thing. If the work is done, again, I'm not sure if that's appealable, but it's conceivable that it is.
So items like those would be use variance rather than area variance, is that?
No, I think they tend to be dimensional type things, so
Oh,
they'd
okay.
probably be area ones. But certain parts of the accessory apartment law were written in a fashion that made clear that relief could not be granted by the zoning board for certain things, and instead, waiver authority was given, like the infirm or elderly person on the 10-year look back and whatnot. So it's a lot easier to have a list of what the deficiencies are and then look and see whether or not they're appealable. But it's really up to Ben and the applicant to determine what can and cannot be appealed, and for the zoning board to make the final decision. Those really aren't planning board issues, but the planning board can't act until either Ben has said it's okay, or the zoning board has granted relief.
And then we can deal with any outstanding issues that we're able to deal with here. All right.
So the addition was built in 2014.
So clearly, it's not within the look-back period.
Right. Because that's the date that he gave us at our last meeting, that the CO was issued for the addition on July 7th, 2014.
All right, but then we got into this language that at some point I think the zoning board is going to have to interpret. When they say that no renovations have been done since the CO was issued, do they mean the original CO that classified it as a single-family home, or a later CO that related to renovations? So again, there's a whole host of issues that may need to go to the ZBA, depending upon how Ben rules. You can't appeal from the planning board to the zoning board. You can only appeal to the zoning board from the building inspector's determinations. He has made one clear one, and that is that there is no protection under the non-conforming lot provisions of the code. Therefore, a variance is needed. So if they wish to appeal that, Ben has made a determination, they can appeal it. But the others, he has not made any firm determination, so there's really nothing to appeal. Whether the appeal is allowed depends upon the language of the code. And that really is something the zoning board decides, not us. We can take a guess at it, but the zoning board determines those things.
Okay, so I will invite him to the 13th as well. It's going to be a full house on the 13th. I hope we have a full board on the 13th.
Work to do. So the first meeting minutes that we will be looking at are those from September 13th. That one of our
I don't
workshop
think Mark and
meetings.
Mike have to stay for these, right? You don't usually stay for those?
I don't think you need us, I'd be happy to go.
Any other business you need us for?
It's just the minutes are the last thing tonight.
Yeah.
I moved the Gomez up so that the minutes would be last and you wouldn't have to sit through them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Enjoy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You're looking at the wrong agenda, dude.
Thank you.
Wake up.
I'm on it.
Okay, so at our meeting on September 13th, we discussed the extension of Bald Hill Estates. We discussed the pool at Sherry Torah, and continued conversation around the Scunamunk subdivision. I hope everyone's had a chance to just peek over those. Any questions, any comments, any revisions that are
Excuse me,
recommended?
Jeff, are you reviewing September 13th?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was absent from that.
Okay.
Did you have a chance to review them?
I did. And I understand that even though I wasn't here, I could approve the minutes.
Right.
But if we have a quorum, then I would prefer to...
I will not have a quorum without you. I need 4.
Okay. Well, they look fine to me then.
One quick comment, Noreen, thank you for the superb level of detail in these minutes. They are hands down by far the best minutes I've seen in a
Thank
long
you.
time. So it's greatly appreciated, especially when it comes to looking over our past issues and discussions when it comes to returning topics.
Right, I'm trying to put as much as I can
And it is greatly appreciated.
Here, here.
within limits.
Any questions, Rich?
No, that's fine.
Okay, if we can take a vote on the September 13th minutes.
I'll make a motion we approve of it.
I'll second.
Oops, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Got my eye.
Moving on to September 18th, we had passed a resolution on doing the extension on Bald Hill that night. We talked about the temporary school trailers, and resolve to approve an extension on the time frame on those. Any questions, revisions suggested?
Well, I glanced at these, I wasn't there, so I guess I can vote on that one.
It was a very short meeting.
It was a short meeting, right, it was,
Yeah.
it was an easy one. Okay, if I can have a motion that we pass the
I'll
minutes
make
from
that
Sir
motion
Ricky.
to pass the minutes.
Thank you,
I'll second it.
thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Finally, tonight, we're looking at our meeting minutes from October 11th. Again,
Yeah.
a lot of review on the pool at Sherry Torah that night, and our first look at the 402 Lakes Road subdivision to be distinguished from the Lakes Road subdivision that we started discussing tonight.
Jeff, I didn't get a chance to look at those minutes, but if you want to give me a few minutes to read through, I will.
I was gonna say the same thing since I wasn't there. I didn't get a look at it.
I think we can take that time.
Do you have a copy there, Rich?
I do.
Okay.
David reviewed, converted it to us.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion that we approve.
Well, I saw some things
Oh,
on here.
yeah, please.
There's some grammatical and spelling errors in here.
Okay, go ahead.
Discussion 2-2 Gomez,
Okay.
the first line sent by the building inspector. Says bullying.
Oh, yes, thank you. Okay.
And then in the next paragraph, there's a few more. We have preformed, performed. And in that same sentence, it should be very good instead of very good.
Oh, yes. This system does not do spell check.
It also says existing system, I guess that should be does not need.
Yes.
And then in the next paragraph, plenty of room for turnaround.
Yeah, I forgot the D. I saw that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then on the other side, there was constraints section, and then constraints under new projects regarding environmental
Mm-hmm.
constraint, and then constraints on the next sentence.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Nuri, would you mind spelling out David's last name, wherever, at least representing the applicant?
Yep.
On Gomez, and I think there was one other place where he was representing, I think on the next project, new projects, number 3, David.
Yeah.
NIEMOTKO.
Are we
Fix
gonna,
those.
I mean, if there's a small letter instead of a capital, we need to fix that?
Yeah, I'll go back through this one. Obviously, my spell check did not work on this one this
Okay.
time. I will glance through it and make sure I fix them. So we can approve with changes if you'd, with corrections if you'd like.
Okay.
All right,
Well,
let's do
I
that.
would have, if we had a quorum, or more than a quorum, I would have abstained, but I don't want to hold it back, so I'll vote.
So if we could get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 11th with all of tonight's suggested revisions and corrections. You'll make that motion, Rich?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Can we have that seconded?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay, so that is our review of minutes for this evening.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Minutes to close,
He has to make a motion to,
close, or-
yes, a motion
Yes.
has to be made to adjourn.
Before we do that, any other issues, questions before the board tonight that they wanted to bring up?
Just reminder, our next meeting is December 13th.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep.
Thank you.
I know, I just got it on my calendar today.
So did I.
That's good.
We're right on top of this. We just want you to know.
I appreciate it. And just if you're interested in the town holiday function, you need to get to the town clerk's office prior to 4 PM on Thursday
Oh,
with your response and your money.
you just also reminded me, because there was an email tonight about the sexual harassment prevention policy that we have to sign off on.
Oh, that email probably came out. Yeah, you need
Yeah,
to
you're
sign that and
late
get
on
that.
that.
Yeah, you're late on that.
I apologize to the planning board and the planning board secretary.
Sign it and send it back.
Do they come to you
Is that an
directly?
email?
With all of us who are deficient in that kind of thing?
They will.
Okay, well, yeah, you'll be getting a list.
It's going to include about all 7 of us.
Right, probably. So, all right, so we'll all make a commitment to
Check
sign
your
off on
emails
that.
on it more often.
As quickly as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, Maureen, check to see if I signed off on that, will you?
They'll be sending me a letter.
Okay.
All right,
Oh,
fair
God,
enough.
okay. We need to do this.
And just for the holiday party, they are requesting, it seems like, all payments be made in cash directly.
I believe so,
They're not
yes.
taking checks, Visa card, PayPal, whatever else people are using now.
Cash bar.
On every
Cash bar.
application.
Right. Okay, so with no further ado, can I get a motion that we close this meeting?
I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.